compose music that allows room for improvisation?
I think, well, that's a good question. I think at least by the time I was in college, but you know, but I remember, of course, all the years in Kronos. I mean, in Kronos worked with ROVA, for instance, and that was a really great experience because that gave us some room for improvising, even though Kronos were never, improvising was never a big interest at Kronos. But there were composers who used that, or like Pauline Oliveira, who worked with her as well. And her pieces often had descriptive, she would have words that describe the sort of thing that she was trying to have you think about when you play. And so, and out of that would come an improvisation. So it was something about the earth or water, and she had a very clear idea, but there was so much room for variation on things, and so that definitely was an improvisation. But it was that type of improvisation. I mean, there's many kinds of improvisation. You can improvise on chord changes, or you can have more free improvisation where you might just have a structure, or you might have a chart of something that sort of gives you a direction of what to do at what time in relationship to someone else. So there's a lot of variations. I mean, and that was interesting when you were talking about the having the different cells of music that then the performer can choose and arrange as they like. Because we've all worked with Terry Riley quite a lot too, and that reminded me of his piece in C, which is very much that way, where you have all these modules, but people can choose to play them as long as they would like, and so things shift all the time, and of course no two performances are ever the same. And I think it's a great concept for performers, because I think it forces them to listen a lot more perhaps than they do, or listen differently in a way. They're really having to be aware of what everyone else is doing, instead of written out music that's so predictable, and you rehearse it and want it to sound a certain way, but that's your goal. Where I think with improvisation often there's that freedom of really relying on your ear at the moment for that decision of what's going to make the best sound, the best choice to play. Yeah, that's the way of describing it. And of course, Willie's worked a lot with John Zorn. Kronos worked a lot with John Zorn. And he would have certain things within a carefully notated score, but there would be certain things that he would have a gesture, say, of a wiggly line. And he'd be pretty clear about what kind of sound he wanted there. But of course, even that gives you quite a lot of freedom in certain respects. So I guess I've always been interested in that. And I guess even from college, I remember playing the Peter Maxwell Davies piece, 8 Songs for a Mad King, which is a really great piece. And I believe in that there is some improvisation as well, but it's been a long time since I played it. Yeah.
This is got improvisation.
Yeah, okay. So that might have been my first exposure to that. But then when I was in college, I played a lot of compositions by the student composers, because most other performers there, it was very geared towards classical music. So these poor composers had a hard time getting people to play their music, even though there are so many of them around. But early on, I was pegged as one of those willing to do that. So as a result, I got to play a lot of different music that, of course, no one had ever heard or played before. And so I'm sure in that, too, there was some improvisation. And I studied improv with Dave Baker, but I always felt it was really such a huge world in that world, word of improvisation that I always felt like my classical studies were the thing that really took precedence. And so it's, I would have to say it's not been until the last 8 years since I left Columbus that I've been able to explore that